Hi, my name is Lucy Jeffrey, and I beat the often path by selling bamboo socks that save endangered animals.
Welcome to the show, Lucy. Thank you so much for being here. Very cool already. So I have to start out by saying that I have seen your impact report for the last year, and
Oh,
it's
have you? Cool.
insane. Yeah, it's beautiful. And it touches on an interesting subject, which is that you have already, in a short amount of time, had a pretty sizable impact on the world and on animal preservation. So before we kind of deep dive into that side of your business, I'd love it if you could tell us who you are and what your mission is and how you came to be on this unusual path that you're on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm currently living in London, and my path is left school, went to university, studied biology. I actually ended up joining HSBC, so a huge bank. I joined their graduate program after I left university. So pretty standard path to start with, school, uni, grad scheme. Like it seemed like the normal thing to do. Quite enjoyed it. It was fine, but it didn't kind of light any fires underneath me. I was with them for 4 years, doing various different roles, and it was in 2 years into that career that I started my company, Bear Kind. So I started it whilst I was still at work, so handy to have the income whilst doing that. And the premise behind it was I wanted to start something that gave something back to the planet. So I started by selling various different kind of sustainable goods. So didn't start with the socks that I'm on now, but I had, reusable straws, recycled t-shirts, that kind of thing. And eventually landed on socks because I wanted to bring out a product that had this charity model. So the premise of the product is 10% of the profits from each pair of socks is donated to the animal on the sock. So every design is linked to a specific animal conservation charity. I've got a couple of rescue charities now as well, but most of them are conservation charities. So, I've got an orangutan sock and it donates to the Orangutan Foundation, same for turtles. And I've got a growing range now. I've gone down that path of socks and I'm focused on that. I kind of was working for HSBC for 2 years whilst running the company on the side. And then 2020 happened to everyone. And I actually shut the company down for a little bit during the pandemic, just because of, at the time, my mum was actually doing my shipping for me. So my childhood bedroom was full of socks and boxes and all sorts. And so during lockdown in the UK, I shut it down because I didn't want her going to the post office. And then I did a bit of a Hail Mary for Christmas. I was like, right, I'm going to go for it. Put some money into marketing. Just, it was a bit of a make or break moment for me. Like I was like, if it doesn't work, then fine. I've got a career that I can focus on. And it started going really well again. It picked up, e-commerce was starting to boom again as people couldn't physically go to the shops, and they were also wanting to support independent businesses. And so I actually ended up quitting my job at the end of 2020. I think the pandemic helped with that because it was a bit of, well, anything can happen. Look at the world right now. So if I don't take the leap now, will I ever? And I haven't looked back. Like I've just done over a year full time on the business, and it's been amazing. Like I've got a team of 5 now, we're really growing it. You've seen the impact report. We had an amazing impact on the charities last year, growing sock range. It's been busy.
That's fabulous that you have done that. So congratulations on making that shift. And what I love about this story is that a lot of times, and I think people get so overwhelmed, and I'm definitely this way, you get so overwhelmed at thinking about big sweeping change. There are things that you want to fix in the world, and you kind of feel like if I can't fix everything overnight, then I'm a failure or something like that. But it's very funny that something as small as a pair of socks and something as small as 10%, those things don't seem like much from the outside, almost insignificant, and yet from that, you have been able to have a pretty sizable impact. So if you wouldn't mind, could you sort of summarize the impact that you had in this last year?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. You go into it thinking, oh, 10% isn't that much. It's just a pair of socks. And that might be if you buy one pair of socks, but then I'm looking at, everyone in the world, I want to buy my socks. So 10% of that is a lot. From last year, we've kind of summarized the impact. We call it our sock currency. So we've kind of translated our donations into what the socks actually do. So to give you an example, we know that for every 4 pairs of orangutan socks sold, we can save 1 acre of tropical forest for a year. So we kind of translate it into this so you know exactly what impact your socks are having. And with the orangutan socks, and also we had some other kind of jungle-y socks. We had leopards and gorillas and things. We've protected, I think it was 1,200 acres in total last year, which is a huge amount of forest. And that was just on a few pairs of socks. And then another big one, this is a great number, is for our turtle socks. We know the number of socks it takes to kind of enable a turtle hatchling to be released on a beach in Indonesia. And we've allowed 4,300 baby turtles to kind of start their life, which is just ridiculous.
That's madness.
Yeah. So, and then there's just so many more animals out there. I think we've got 21 different charities with us at the moment, but we're aiming to basically 4 times that this year. Really go for it.
Wow, that's so cool. And when you said that you went all in on the marketing side, or you decided the make or break moment, what did you do in that moment? What did going all in mean?
Yeah, so in the UK during the pandemic, the government released like a few different types of loans to kind of help re-stimulate the economy and get more money into business again. And one of them was this bounce back loan that you could take out where for a year the government will pay the interest. So the idea is you've got this loan to help you. You don't have to worry about it for a year. So I took out a fairly small loan, actually. It was about £3,000. You could take up to 50k. So it was a small amount. And I just threw it all straight into Facebook ads. I was like, right, let's go for it. And we had one particular ad, and it was the orangutans actually, that just smashed it. It did really, really well, like 10 times what we normally do. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm onto something. And it was just kind of enough of a confidence boost to allow me to just say, okay, there's something here. Like if I don't go all in, quit my job and go for it full time, then, maybe I won't be able to grow this to what it could potentially be.
All right, this is very cool. There's a lot of cool things going on here. So first of all, you had said you had a degree in biology, right? So your degree was in biology.
Yeah.
How do you go from that to banking in the first place? Was that just the first job you could find, or?
Yeah, a bit of an accident, really. I just kind of fell into it. I knew I didn't actually want to carry on pursuing biology because it seemed like either a path into kind of teaching or research. And at that point, I was like, I don't really fancy that. And I panicked a bit. I actually applied to do a master's at the same university. And in doing so, I applied for like a finance master's because I was like, that broadens my horizons. I'll just do that. So I was trying to just stay at university, give myself another year to think about it. But in doing that, I was like, I should probably get some experience in finance. So I did an internship at HSBC before my master's. Then after that, they offered me the grad scheme to start the following year. So I was like, I don't need this master's. So I actually sacked the master's off and went to New Zealand instead, which was way better.
And that's another scheme, the grad scheme. A lot of schemes going on.
Another scheme, yeah.
Too many schemes. Nothing can be trusted. Today's episode of Beat the Offing Path is brought to you by Captain's Carpatorium. We've got carp. Boy, do we got carp. Carp, carp, carp with a cherry on tarp. Come on down to Captain's Carpatorium. We don't sell carp or rent carp. The carp is for your viewing pleasure only. At Captain's Carpatorium. Okay, so you get involved in banking, and I think we all know the stereotypical things, but what was your experience of working for a corporate bank?
It was actually a lot different than I thought it would be to start with. Like I was on the retail banking side of things. Everyone was really friendly. I carried on after my internship because I just thought everyone was really nice. And I was like, I can see myself working there. So I actually quite enjoyed it. I learned quite a lot, and it was really good for my confidence and just kind of getting into the working world and getting started. I actually met my partner, who I'm with now, at the bank. So it was quite a nice experience, really. Yeah, and then I think it started getting not worse, but I started to notice the corporate side of it, like how hard it is to do things. You can't change anything. You have such a tiny impact. You're a tiny cog in a massive machine. You could say, I have this idea, and everyone's like, oh yeah, but nothing ever really happens because there's so much red tape, and it just gets more and more frustrating. And then, you flip it and you look at starting your own company. And I'm like, I've got an idea. I just do it. It's so refreshing.
Put some money behind an ad and people respond to that ad and you're
It
off.
just, yeah. And I do think there's a part of it is you get that kind of instant gratification a little bit. But then actually in the long term, there is a lot of work that needs to go into it to generate. But you do see, like, if you want to change something, you just change it. And it's amazing.
That's so wonderful. Would you advise anybody to keep a job in the early years to have that overlap like you had for 2 years?
It definitely helped because you're willing to take a few more risks, I think. Like, I had an income, I could pay to feed myself and live. And it depends on your situation, I guess. I wouldn't have been able to do the company without that income from the bank. No way. I was happy to put a bit of savings into the company and go that way and know that I wouldn't necessarily get that money back, but it was okay because I could fall back on the bank, and I was pretty well paid at the bank. So yeah, I think it's a good way to go. The one thing I would say is there was an amazing difference when I left to how much I pushed the company forward when I was working on it full time. Like, it seems obvious, but the amount of time and energy that I was then able to apply was just like tenfold. It was insane. And the business really did well from it. So there's only so far you can take it doing both. I think there's at some point you're going to have to take the jump unless doing both is just quite comfortable for you. Like, if you really want to grow a business and take it global, you're not going to be able to do both. Like, there's going to come a bite point, I guess.
So you had this idea. You say, I want to create a company. I want to give back. I have a general notion that I like to help, I suppose, animals in general were your primary focus at that time. So you thought, I'm going to try a range of eco products. Now, where did you source these products? How did you come up with the products themselves?
When I first started, so the reusable straws was my first product. And I got them from Alibaba, actually, which is the Chinese marketplace. So you can find all kinds of products on there. So it wasn't the most sustainable way to start, I have to admit. And I actually quickly changed from that. I started by drop shipping. So for people that don't know, that's where you have the products on your site, but you don't hold any stock. So as soon as someone orders, you actually then order directly from the supplier and they'll ship to the customer. So you don't hold any stock. It's quite low risk because, you only buy the product once someone has bought from you. It was bad for a few reasons. That I had no control of the packaging, so there was loads of plastic. It took literally weeks to arrive. So I very quickly moved away from that model. As soon as I had one or two people buy, I was like, great, I've got interest. I will invest in my own stock. So I have more control over the packaging. So I was like, right, cut out all the plastic. The shipping can be a couple of days. And so I just kind of started from there. Started small. It was incremental, and you just got to start somewhere and then improve it. My first model of business was horrendous. Like, the customer, taking for the product to take weeks to arrive. That's an awful model. It's, but it was a start, and it got me an idea that I had traction, and then I improved from there.
Did you start building your own custom products at some point?
Yeah. So the straws, they started as unbranded. Then I started branding them. And then the next products I went to were were recycled T-shirts and tote bags and things like that. So they were custom branded, but they were kind of already, you just go to a T-shirt supplier and say, this is the design I want. The socks were the first ones that were more custom built, I guess. So I decided that I wanted to go into socks, and I paid someone to do a little turtle design for me, and I was like, right, just do me a cartoony turtle design. I found a sock supplier. I literally just Googled it, spoke to them about it. They loved the idea. I'm with the same supplier now. They're super supportive of what I'm doing. And yeah, I brought out one design. I started with turtles and kind of floated it with my customers who were already in the kind of ecosphere. They like the straws, they like the recycled tote bags, etc. So it was the right audience to test it with, and they loved those and said, we want more animals. So I got designing more.
That's fantastic. And where's the factory now? I read it, but it escapes me at the moment.
Istanbul, in
Istanbul.
Turkey.
And there's something special about that factory, if I recall, right? Or it's a family-owned operation, or there's something.
I think it's third generation in the family. So I think it's been in the same family for quite a long time, from what I've read about them. But yeah, Anil, the person that I've had this one point of contact from the very beginning, and he's just been very supportive. And he's either very good at sales, or I do genuinely feel that they're very invested in my company and what I'm doing as well, because yeah, and having that relationship is key. Like, you can't, if you have a bad supply relationship, it can really put a spanner in the works.
That makes so much sense. And when it comes to bamboo, you decided to make socks from bamboo. They're, I think, 85% bamboo. Was that a decision that you made consciously, or was that something that you did based on research?
Yeah, a bit of both. It was starting to become quite a popular thing. A lot of people, were kind of backing bamboo socks and saying how good they are, because they have a lot of good qualities for feet. So it's things like thermoregulation. So they keep your feet warmer in winter and cooler in summer, and they're good at sweat wicking and things like that. So kind of a good environment to provide for your feet. And then the bamboo itself is quite a sustainable source from the plant itself. It's very quick growing. They can chop it right down to the root without disturbing the roots. And then it just kind of keeps growing back. So a pretty sustainable source as well. So it was a bit of research, a bit of that. It just seemed to be popping up, and I guess I just jumped on the trend.
So one of the most interesting things, so it's 4 pairs of socks that you sell that can fund the protection of 1 acre of tropical forest for a whole year. So how does that actually work?
That's specifically for the orangutan socks. So
Okay.
if we take them, so they're linked to a charity. So the orangutan socks support the Orangutan Foundation, and they through their programs, that is what they do. So they have a forest protection program. So either we'll go directly to them on their website, and they'll tell us how much it costs to fund the protection of 1 acre, or if I take our bumblebee socks as another example, this is a bit more. So it takes 128 pairs of bumblebee socks to plant enough wildflower habitat for bees to cover a whole rugby pitch, or a soccer field, or whatever you guys.
I think we'll get it. We'll piece it together.
Yeah.
We're going with rugby pitch.
Rugby pitch, yes. So again, they have their, the Bumblebee Conservation Trust is who we support with the bee socks, and they'll, come to us and say, this is how much it costs to do X, Y, and Z. And we'll say, great, well, we know how much we donate for each pair of socks. So it takes this many of socks to do X, Y, and Z as well.
Today's lesson in building your own Okay, Google, do you know who invented the first home security system?
Jeff Bezos.
That's right, Marie von Britten-Brown, the woman without whom your Nest cameras wouldn't be able to creep out your mailman. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear, Gary. Marie von Britten-Brown lived in Jamaica, Queens, in New York City. That's not to be confused with Costa Rica, Cleveland. In the 1960s, Marie noticed a disturbing trend in her neighborhood: rising crime rates and slower police response times. No, she wasn't a spring chicken when she had the idea. She was 43 years old, so there's still hope for you and me yet, no matter what my mom says. Her goal was to remotely identify who was knocking at her door, which required 3 heights of peephole, a camera system, and a 2-way microphone system. The camera could move up and down to detect whether it was an immense intruder, a miniature marauder, or just a pint-sized poacher. Her groundbreaking system let her automatically notify the police or a security firm with just the push of a button. Not only that, but she could remotely unlock the door in case the person knocking was just ye old neighborhood pie delivery man. Pie. In 1966, Marie von Britten-Brown filed for a patent and got it, as she truly was the first person to come up with what later became CCTV and the foundation for arguably every home security system on the market today. She's the reason that today it's slightly harder to steal packages from someone's doorstep and so much easier to make a viral video of someone slipping and falling on the ice of your driveway. Stupid UPS driver trying to do his job in the snow. So how has your day-to-day life changed now that you work for yourself versus for a bank?
Weirdly, practically not too much, because the thing is, when I first started and I quit, we were in lockdown, so nothing much changed. I was just working every day.
Typing away on a computer.
Yeah, just carrying on Zoom,
Here we go again.
It's so for the good parts that have changed, way more flexible, So I might have a friend who's like, I've got a day off today, and I'm like, great, let's do something. And I wouldn't normally have spent my holiday doing, random flexible days off, things like that. So although we haven't traveled much yet, I'm sure that will now come as things start to open up, and the plan is to be a bit more flexible with that. Interestingly, on the more negative side is I have taken way less holiday. I have ended up, we worked it out that I took about 10 days off last year. And 4 of them were over Christmas where I actually didn't work. Like I was like, I shut everything down, no emails, nothing. The rest of them I still worked. So technically I took 4 full-time holiday days last year. And I was like, that's not okay. Like I'll burn out quite quickly if I carry on doing that. So because it's your baby, it's very easy to do that. Like, from a practical point of view, I've got customers that I need to speak to. So sometimes I can't log off. But also it's like a mental thing that I do actually need to force myself to take that time because otherwise I'll burn out. So it's an objective for me this year to take more holiday, which sounds like a good thing, but it's actually will be quite hard to do.
Mm-hmm. To what degree are you motivated on a daily basis? 7 a.m. or you really don't feel like putting in the work? Are you motivated by the other objective that if I do this, I'm going to help save the rainforest, I'm going to save some turtles, I'm going to save some penguins, I'm going to save some rhinoceri? To what degree does that help you keep going?
I think it's obviously always there. And I think about it as the bigger picture of the company. But on a daily basis, like I don't think I necessarily have the connect with I wake up and go, I will save X amount of orangutans today. I think maybe if I, actually worked in the field with them, that would be more motivating.
Right.
But for me, it's more like I get up and I'm like, I'm going to be successful in business today and I'm going to do that. But our overarching objective is to save more animals. And we do that by selling more socks. I think because I'm enjoying the process and how exciting it is working for myself, that's what motivates me at the moment. Well, I wonder if that'll change as I kind of go through the business journey.
But it does raise an interesting point, and it's often been said that when people look at things like saving or investing, they tend to think of putting in giant lump sums, or I need to just save a lot of money at one time. But it's been shown that when you kind of automate these things, if I can just have my bank put, let's say, £100 into a savings account every month, and I don't have to think about it, that can add up over time. So there's a really powerful lesson here in sort of automating the good that you want to do in the world. So you set up your business structurally in a way that 10% was going to go to these things. Once you set up that consciously, it's not something that you have to think about on a day-to-day because you baked it into the business model itself. So now you just have to run your business, and a byproduct of you being successful in your business is that all of these initiatives are growing. That's fantastic if you think about it.
I love that. I've never thought about it like that before. That's really interesting. And I think you're completely right. Yeah, because, we come together, like, the team will come together and we'll discuss what's going on. And we're not sitting there being like, well, we've saved this amount of penguins and this. We're kind of into the detail of like what's happening, what our priorities are. And, we are running a business. But you're right. The impact report we discussed at the start was such an amazing process we went through, because that is when we actually took the time to be like, this is the impact we have. And it was quite an emotional journey, that one, because you're like, wow, like you actually take the time to sit down and look at your impact. And it's almost more meaningful in that way, because you've been so busy doing everything in the year, you kind of like forget about it. It's there because that's, your objective to save more animals. But then once you actually sit back and reflect on it, you're like, yes, amazing. This is why we're doing it.
And, there's another interesting phenomenon of human behavior. So obviously, if you put out Facebook ads and you told somebody, hey, donate $5 to the orangutans to save the rainforest, just here's a charity buy link. Probably not many people would do that. Some, but probably not very many. So in your experience, what is the value of having a product? So it's like you're getting socks, and we're going to put 10% of the profit into this. Do you feel that that is just a better way with human psychology to get people to inadvertently support charities or causes?
I think so, because all these people want to, right? Like, no, not many people will be sitting there being like, I never want to donate to charity. Like it's not a conscious no. It's more of like it's almost like an avoidance. Like we can't physically donate to all the charities we ever see. And so it's having this like thought process that it's almost like an ego stroking thing, because they want to feel good. They want to donate to charity.
Right.
Yeah. And they can. And it's like they're getting a product as well. So it's, and every time they wear them, it's a nice reminder. And we see it's obviously very powerful at Christmas because it's a great gift. Especially, you've got Uncle Bob who loves orangutans or rhinos or whatever it might be. It's literally the perfect gift because it's, everyone loves socks, everyone wears socks, and it's got that powerful message behind it that's quite an easy gifting project, but at the same time quite thoughtful. So I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's, we wouldn't. And from a personal point of view, I always say that there's no way I could have donated this amount of money to charity if it was just me personally.
No.
So the impact is way bigger. But yeah, you're right, because we do get bombarded with all these charities that need our help, and it can be overwhelming because it's like we know, but we can't help everyone. Yeah. So yeah, it's great to be able to. We've got quite a lot of charities that we're supporting, so it's nice to be able to do that.
Sounds wonderful. And at this point, I know you might not be thinking 5 years out. Who knows what's going to happen in 1 year? But if you had something like a 5-year goal or plan for yourself, what might it be?
Well, definitely, we're very UK based right now with who we're selling to. So plan is for expansion, Europe first. I want to do the States and Australia. And I want to have more hybrid living. So my partner's Australian, so all his family's in Australia. So the plan eventually will be to kind of have this freedom to kind of be in between the two. I'd love to set up basically the business model I've got here, but in Australia. So, maybe we'll have a slightly different supplier, and it's all set up, and because I've got a warehouse with all my shipping and operations in the UK. So obviously to have that in Australia would be amazing. And then maybe one in America, and just have this kind of global network. But from a sock point of view, I literally want to put every animal in the world on a sock, which is a lot. So I'm starting to breach into these species that people haven't heard of. So one we're designing at the moment is something called the Numbat. I don't know if you've heard of.
I have not. I've heard of a dad bat.
Well, it's kind of...
Sorry.
What's a dad bat?
That's a joke. That's a horrible. That's a dad joke. I'm sorry to you and to the listeners. A terrible pun. All right. Anyways, I'll punish myself later for that.
Yeah. So these little guys are an Australian species, and there's only 900 left of them in the wild. They're incredibly, incredibly endangered. And yeah, if you Google them, they're like a tiny little kangaroo / rat / they've got like little tiger stripes on them. They're incredible, but I'd never seen or heard of them before. And they're one of the most endangered species in the world. And I was like, great, I'll put them on a sock. And it's starting to get into that, actually we're shedding light on species that people have never heard of. And that's what I want to start moving into, as well as having these more commonly known ones.
So from getting started, you've sparked new ideas, new conversations, and things will evolve and continue to evolve in ways that you never could have imagined even 2 years ago, I'm guessing.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I didn't start with socks, and now it's socks. So, I mean, in 5 years' time, maybe it'll be something other than socks. I don't know. And that right now, I cannot see, what is it? What's the sound? I can't see the wood from the socks. So there's socks everywhere. So, but yeah, who knows? It could be something different down the line.
Well, it's a wonderful story, and I think anybody who's paying attention can learn a lot from it. I think so many people are in the situation that you were in a few years ago. I can't imagine how many people out there are feeling just like you were 4 years ago.
Right,
and they have no idea what could be in store for them 4 years from now.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think that's, a lot of people would be adverse to this kind of change, and it's nerve-wracking. But I think once you make that leap and you just start something, and, it's easy to look at my journey and be like, wow, she's gone from this to quitting a job to aiming for $1 million. But it didn't start that way. It started with I came up with a brand name, and then I started a product, and it was a horrible model. So I changed it. So it's the tiny steps that you don't see that are actually really easy to take, and then grow from there.
I love it. I love every part of it. So again, thank you very much for sitting down as we approach the end of the hour. Thank you again for sitting with me and sharing that. So much inspiration there. I want to give you the closing word. So promote anything you want to promote. Let anybody know how they can support what you're doing or reach you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the best way to find me, my website is barekind.co.uk, so that's BARE kind. And then Instagram is where we're shouting about stuff the most and the loudest. So that's just @barekind on Instagram. I'm on there all the time, sadly. So please come say hi.
Who isn't?
Yeah.
Well, again, I can't thank you enough. It's been an absolute pleasure. And
thank you for having me. It's been great.
With that, the official podcast is over.